Can you give my constituent in Harlow that this government will tackle the issue that we've inherited?
Yeah, I totally agree with what we're dealing with today. When we think about hotel use across the country, we think about our pivot to military sites. The original sin for all of that was the choice of the previous government simply to stop assessing applications. We're, of course, reversing that, but it's taking time to turn around their failure.
Yep.
Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will later today be showing the full details of my plans for far-reaching reforms to the UK asylum system to restore order and control to our borders. We have learned the lessons from our international partners, including Denmark, where fundamental reform to their system has seen asylum claims at a 40-year low. The impact of this government's plans will be to restore order and control to the border so we can be the open, tolerant and generous country that we know ourselves to be.
Nadia Whitson.
The Denmark-style policies briefed in the last couple of days are dystopian. It's shameful that a Labour government is ripping up the rights and protections of people who have endured unimaginable trauma. Is this how we'd want to be treated if we were fleeing for our lives? Of course not. So how can we be adopting such obviously cruel policies? Is the Home Secretary proud that the government has sunk to such depths that it's now being praised by Tommy Robinson?
Well, Mr. Speaker, look, I'm disappointed at the nature of the question from my honourable friend. I hope she will look at the detail of the reforms. And what I've said already on these matters is that we have a proper problem that it is our moral duty to fix. Our asylum system is broken. The breaking of that asylum system is causing huge division across our whole country. It is a moral mission for me to resolve that division across our country. I know that the reforms I will be setting out later on today can fix this system and in doing so can unite what is today a divided country.
The Home Secretary likes to talk tough whilst the numbers continue to rise. So as part of that statement that she's going to bring to the House, can she confirm that detailed modelling will be published and whether she has shared that modelling with Number 10?
Well, the honourable gentleman's question would have had a bit more force if he had apologised for being part of a government that fundamentally broke our migration system and presided over the crisis inherited by this government. Of course we will model the impact of our policies. This is a sweeping set of reforms, the most significant in modern times. They will bring down the number of arrivals, increase the number of removals of those who have no right to be in this country. We will build on our track record in government that has seen removals be increased, and the totality of these reforms, I believe, will unlock the generosity of this country in creating new safe and legal routes which will grow more generous over time.
Chris Phillips, Shadow Home Secretary.
Well, it's good to see the Home Secretary here taking some time off from her leadership campaign. She is quite clearly preparing. She's quite clearly preparing a one-in, one-out policy for Number 10 Downing Street. Now, the Home Secretary has announced she wants to replace the government's entire immigration policy with Denmark's. Is that because the government has failed so badly in the year and a half since the election? Because since the election, illegal channel crossings have surged 55%, up to 62,000. New asylum claims have reached a record ever. And the numbers in asylum hotels have actually gone up under this government. And in just the 75 days since she became Home Secretary, 10,000 illegal immigrants have crossed the English Channel. But the Home Secretary...
Oh, sorry. You've got to at least try and get to a question in relative time. Don't forget we're having a big debate shortly on it, Chris.
OK, I'll ask a question. Will she agree with us? That to control our borders, we must come out of the ECHR, enabling us to deport all illegal immigrants within a week of arrival?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think we can all agree that the honourable gentleman's leadership campaign is going absolutely nowhere. Let me tell him once again, his party reverts to an unworkable solution, a total gimmick, just like their failed Rwanda plan, £700 million spent and a total of 4 volunteers returned. Always from the party opposite, gimmicks and solutions that would never ever work. What you get from this government is a track record of an increase in removals based on what we inherited from that government and a proper plan that will fix this broken system.
Chris Phil.
Well, unlike her leader, our leader is not going anywhere. Our leader's not going anywhere, but hers most certainly is. She talks about out of number 10. She talks about the Rwanda scheme. That Rwanda scheme never even started. It worked in Australia. It would have worked here. And after they cancelled it with no replacement, numbers have surged. The truth is that under this government, illegal immigration has gone up. There is a crime wave, including rape and murder, going with it. Her ideas are not radical enough. She wants to give illegal immigrants a 20-year path to citizenship.
Order, please. I'm not being funny. The idea is to ask a question. Statements will be coming later. We're going to go through all this. Really doesn't help. If you want to pick which colleagues you don't want from your side to ask a question, because that's what you're taking the time off. Please, Shadow Home Secretary.
She wants to give illegal immigrants a 20-year path to citizenship. We want to deport them. Will she accept our proposal to come out of the ECHR so we can actually control our borders?
Well, I'm sure all of his members will be delighted that the Leader of the Opposition is going absolutely nowhere. We're very happy to see her remain in place, Mr. Speaker. This government will not come out of the European Convention on Human Rights. What we are going to do is reform the way that Article 8 in particular is applied to immigration rules within our country. That is because this government rolls up its sleeves and does the actual hard work of governing, unlike his party, which just gave up altogether.
Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrat, spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the point of asylum policy, the Liberal Democrats recently defeated an attempt by the Honourable Member for Clacton, backed vociferously by the Conservatives, who he's trying to kill, to rip this country out of the ECHR. Metaphorically trying to kill. Leaving the ECHR would do nothing to halt small boat crossings, but it would deny British people hard-won rights. Free speech, the Hillsborough inquiry, and protections for older people. The government has announced it's reviewing certain articles of the ECHR. The Home Secretary has just referenced it. Can she give us a cast-iron guarantee that when she's working on these changes, she will do so in partnership with other signatories to the Convention, and she will not follow the Conservatives and Reform in seeking to isolate this country on the international stage?
Well, myself and the Prime Minister could not be clearer. We are not coming out of the European Convention on Human Rights. We are going to pursue reform, in particular of Article 8, which is a qualified right under the Convention, and I will set out the plans to do so later on today. And there is a conversation happening with our partners at the Council of Europe in relation to the application of Article 3. So there is a conversation that is already happening on reform of the European Convention, both here at home and the domestic legislation that we will pursue, but also at the Council of Europe itself. And that is the approach that this government will continue with.
Joyce Fenton.
Number 3, please, Mr. Speaker.
Start.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I will group this response with questions 6 and 9. Tackling violence against women and girls is a top priority for this government, and our mission to halve violence against women and girls in a decade has begun. We will deliver a transformative cross-government approach underpinned by the new strategy, which we will publish soon.
Mr. Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ending the presumption of parental contact in the family courts was a huge and long overdue step, worked hard for by campaigners. That presumption allowed post-separation abuse to often continue. Now, while the MOJ is leading on that, can the Minister tell me what the Home Office is doing to make sure that we properly police and enforce other ways of tackling post-separation abuse so it can't continue?
I thank my honourable friend, and also I'd like to thank him and give special mention to him and the member for Penistone and Stockbridge, who worked so tirelessly since they arrived in this House, to join with some of us who have been trying to change the presumption of contact in domestic abuse cases for 11 years with no success from those opposite. I work very closely with the Victims Minister and the Minister for Courts, and we will be making sure that it is part of a package of security that is purely cross-government.
Shoplifting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent contacted me because she had been drugged and violently raped by a man that she knew, who she had worked for as a nanny for his children. She describes this man as a high net worth individual. Despite providing detailed evidence to the police, she says ultimately it came down to her word against his, and she feels his financial standing and his influence meant that her case never went to the CPS. The Minister will know very well that only less than 4% of rape allegations actually result in summons or charge. So, Mr. Speaker, at which point are we going to stop talking about how unfair the system is and actually do something that means that poor constituents like mine get the justice that they deserve?
I thank the Honourable Lady and would be happy to speak to her and her constituent about their particular case. It is one I have heard similarly with regard to high worth, high powerful rapists or alleged rapists. Look, undertaking a proper change to how our policing and our justice system works for rape victims, whether that's through Operation Soteria or other interventions such as the new policing centre for Vorg, to actually improve this across the country and not just see pockets of good practice, is a vitally important thing, and it is going to take time, but I am more than happy to work with her on this.
The Singh Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for her reply. The Minister will be aware of the important role played by specialists by and for organisations in supporting victims from minority communities and bringing crucial cultural awareness to the table. Sikh Women's Aid recently held an all-women's meeting in which they focused on the trauma and fear generated by recent racially aggravated attacks in the West Midlands, including in my constituency. So can the Minister outline what steps the Home Office has taken to ensure that specialist community support services, including by and for organisations such as Sikh Women's Aid, are properly resourced so that victims from all backgrounds, and whether that be white working class girls or Sikh women and girls, can receive culturally sensitive support?
I thank my honourable friend, and we recognise the vital role of the specialist by and for services in providing tailored support to victims and survivors, and it has been my personal pleasure over many years to work alongside the brilliant women at Sikh Women's Aid who operate so furtively in our local area. I meet regularly with IMCAN, the umbrella lead for such by and for services, to seek solutions to exactly this problem of ensuring that there isn't a postcode lottery and that everybody can have specialist support.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Karen Bradley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very much looking forward to the new Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, so I wonder whether the Minister could give a bit more of a clue as to when we might see it, and also will it include a single definition of violence against women and girls which is applied consistently across law enforcement and the Department?
I thank the Honourable Lady, and I very much look forward to coming to her committee at the publication of it, no doubt, to discuss that. It is not for the Home Office to tell law enforcement exactly what the definition is in these regards, and obviously there is a definition of domestic abuse, of sexual violence in the law, but we will lay out clearly what we mean by violence against women and girls, and police operational matters will be being corralled, like I say, by the new centre, which has had £13 million investment to make sure that there is a standardised practice across the country to ensure that we are all working to the same hymn sheet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government is right to have abolished the role of Police and Crime Commissioner. Liberal Democrats have been campaigning for that for some time. But many victims' organisations rely on the PCC core grant to fund violence against women initiatives. So will the Minister confirm that cash will not be lost by those organisations, including mine in Eastbourne, and that they will retain it after this reform?
I absolutely can confirm that the part of the Police and Crime Commissioner's role of commissioning local victim services will be brought into new systems. It will not be that that money is gone from the centre, it is that how it will be given out. I can't say for certain that all organisations that currently have the money on the basis that they currently have it, because nobody could commit to that. That is the Commissioner's job, but we will be making sure that all victims commissioning, and look forward to the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, because there will be a huge amount in that.
Sarah Dyke.
Mr. Speaker, my constituent Fiona from Melbourne Port is a victim of historical rape. With recent reporting highlighting the vile attitudes of some in regard to historical rape victims, Fiona told me her confidence in the judicial systems and the police have been well and truly knocked, as detectives tell her there is no starting point for their inquiries. So what steps is the Minister taking, along with Cabinet colleagues, to support historical victims of violence against women and girls?
I thank the Honourable Lady, and there is absolutely no reason why historical cases shouldn't be brought forward and reviewed, and as part of the work following on from the Casey review, certainly in cases of historical child sexual abuse, the opening of no further action cases has absolutely really been working at pace through Operation Beaconport. But more broadly, there are review systems, and I will send the information about the organisations that the Home Office works with, who work alongside the police to look into the very review systems that might be needed for people whose cases, like yours and like the one earlier, where they haven't been picked up.
Shadow Minister Katie Lamb.
Thank you. Mr Speaker, in March this year, the then Permanent Secretary of the Home Office said the strategy to tackle violence against women and girls would be published before summer recess. In July, the Minister committed to September. My honourable friend, the member for Rutland and Stamford, wrote to the Minister 6 weeks ago to ask for an update and is yet to receive a response. We would all like to see progress in halving violence against women and girls. But commenting on the delay, the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, Dame Nicole Jacobs, said, "I fail to see where the momentum within government is coming from to ensure this commitment succeeds." What does the Minister make of the Domestic Abuse Commissioner's words, and can she please reiterate her commitment to publish the strategy before the end of the year?
As somebody who meets with the Domestic Abuse Commissioner on a very, very regular basis, I can't say that I categorise that she would ever say that I didn't have the enthusiasm to make this work. But perhaps I am wrong, and I shall ask her what she meant by those comments. What I can absolutely say is that it will come. It will be out very soon, and what I would want to say is it will be out when it is the best it can be, but we don't need to wait for a piece of paper to start our action. So, I mean, Mr Speaker, I won't take up too much time by the list of about 13 things that we have already changed in the last 18 months, such as Raneem's Law, such as a DAPO rollout, which for 4 years waited.
Thank you. Helen Morgan.
Number 4, please, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
The government is increasing resources in neighbourhood policing teams and putting in place stronger measures to prevent farm theft and fly tipping. We're working closely with the NPCC to deliver their rural and wildlife crime strategy, which will be published imminently and will be a joined-up approach ensuring we're tackling crimes which have devastating consequences for our rural communities.
Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I thank the Minister for her answer, and there's no doubt that my constituents are concerned by crimes like equipment theft and wildlife crime, but they're also really worried about drug dealing taking place in broad daylight, in parks in our villages and in country lanes. And I wonder if the Minister could highlight what the government's drug strategy is to stop our young people being targeted by organised criminals, and also how we improve community policing in rural places so that those criminals don't have the confidence to target our young people so willingly. Thank her for the question. In terms of community policing, of course, we're putting 3,000 extra community police in our neighbourhoods by next April, and there will be a named officer that people can contact. In terms of the wider drugs problem, she's absolutely right to highlight it, and this government is putting in place, has put in place since we came into power, a very successful County Lines programme, which is targeting the lines where people are forced, often exploited, to take drugs across the country. I'm very happy to talk to her about it more. I've seen it for myself in action in Merseyside and the impact that it's having, but she's right to highlight what is a very deep problem, and we are absolutely determined to tackle it.
Neil Duncan-Jordan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. There were over 2,000 recorded wildlife crimes last year, but less than 50 resulted in convictions. I therefore welcome the government's commitment to consult on strengthening the Hunting Act. Can the Minister update the House on what discussions they've had with departmental colleagues to ensure effective enforcement of any forthcoming legislation? And will the Home Office consider making key wildlife offences, including fox hunting, notifiable crimes, so these crimes are recorded and prioritised by the police force?
Friend for his question, he's right to highlight these crimes and the need for us to prioritise in a way that it wasn't under the previous government. The strategy that is coming out, the NPCC strategy on rural and wildlife crime, will set operational and organisational policing priorities in respect of tackling these crimes, and it will be published imminently, and I'd love to, once it's been published, have a proper conversation with the honourable gentleman.
Minister Matt Vickers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Rural crime and tool theft are out of control. Every 21 minutes, a tradesman's tools are stolen, and when a farmer or tradesman has their equipment stolen, it causes complete misery and costs them severely. Then all too often their means of work are sold in broad daylight at car boot sales. Will the government adopt our rural crime and tool theft plan to crack down on the sale of stolen goods and the misery being caused to so many farmers and tradesmen?
The honourable gentleman will know that we are committed to the implementation of the Equipment Theft Act and fully support the intentions. Indeed, it was brought forward by a member of his own party, and we support that, and we are working with colleagues across the policing landscape to make sure that we can do just that. But I won't take any lessons from the honourable gentleman who left crime in the state that it had no rural crime strategy, unlike this government, and whose record took our police away from our neighbourhoods. We will put them back.
Mohammed Yazid.
Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I'll group this question with question 20. As part of the Neighbourhood Policing Guarantee, we have made £200 million available to police forces this financial year to kickstart the journey towards delivering 13,000 additional neighbourhood policing personnel. By April 2026, there will be 3,000 more neighbourhood police across England and Wales, strengthening police visibility and neighbourhood policing to help to deter, prevent and respond to crime.
Mohammed Yazid.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the government decision to phase out police and crime commissioners with the savings reinvested into frontline policing. I also warmly welcome the recent grant for additional wardens to tackle antisocial behaviour hotspots. A partnership between the council, community groups and the police has reduced antisocial behaviour in Bedford Town Centre by nearly 15%. But much more still needs to be done. So what further reforms will the forthcoming white paper include to help Bedfordshire Police get more bobbies on the beat?
Can I thank my honourable friend for his question? I'm really pleased to see the progress that has been made, and I'd love to come and visit again, as I did with the Prime Minister in opposition, to see that progress in action. There are two aspects where we'll be making significant changes. One is through the Police and Crime Bill, where there are new powers for us to tackle antisocial behaviour in our town centres, respect orders being one example of that, and our wider police reform, which will look at the entire policing landscape in a way that the opposition completely failed to do, make it more efficient, more effective, and make sure our police are targeted where the public want them in our communities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Recently, I visited Marlcross with local councillors and members of Litter Busters, a local voluntary group who do excellent work to clean up their area. But they really shouldn't have to. There is a real challenge with fly tipping in this area and other parts of Norwich. I welcome the pledge to increase neighbourhood police officers. Can the Minister assure me that they will have the powers and presence to be able to tackle fly tipping and advise on any other measures that could be taken to crack down on this, which blights so many neighbourhoods?
My honourable friend is absolutely right to raise this issue. It's an issue in my constituency, and I suspect in many across the country, and the scourge of fly tipping must be tackled. Through the Police and Crime Bill, we are putting in place new statutory enforcement guidance for local authorities in terms of what is to be expected by them in tackling antisocial behaviour. And I know that in DEFRA there is an ongoing piece of work, a review of the powers that local authorities and the police have to seize vehicles and crush them, indeed, when we have prolific offenders of this awful crime.
Louis French.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over 5,000 people in Bexley have signed my petition to stop Mayor Khan closing the overnight counter at Bexley Heath Police Station. So can the Minister tell us, who is to blame for the £260 million of funding cuts now facing the Met Police? Is it the Labour government or the Labour Mayor of London?
Again, I'm not going to take any lessons from the honourable member in terms of their record on crime, where we saw shoplifting in the last 2 years of the Conservative government soar by 70% and street theft soar by 60% just in those last 2 years. The Mayor of London, of course, had a consultation, and that consultation has now concluded, and there are 7 fewer shop fronts that will be police officer counters that will be closing. He will save £7 million through that work. But I think it's important that we recognise the work of Sadiq Khan as the Mayor of London. The number of murders we heard recently is the lowest since records began.
Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And one of the things that neighbourhood policing can tackle very effectively is the way in which TikTok is being used to distribute vapes, spice-flavoured vapes to our young people. And I wondered if she could comment on that.
I'm very happy to have a conversation with the Honourable Lady about what her experience of that is. Of course, the use of illegal vapes and the sale of vapes to under 18-year-olds is prolific and is being used as a main source of income from serious organised criminals. I know the Met Police particularly have done a huge operation recently to try and target not just the people who are buying the goods, but the people who are responsible for the serious organised crimes that are driving it. But very happy to talk to her further.
Minister Matt Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labour's very own Police and Crime Commissioner for Durham, Joy Allen, has said that this government has consistently demonstrated its complete lack of understanding for policing and community safety. Does the Minister think that she said that because they've cut police numbers by 1,316 since they came to power, or because crime is surging, or because senior police officers are warning that this government is creating a funding crisis?
I would like to pay tribute to Joy Allen, who I know very well, who is a very good Police and Crime Commissioner, and I thank her for all the work that she has done. And I know that our announcement last week was a difficult one for Police and Crime Commissioners to hear, but we thank them for all the work that they do, and they will continue to do for the next 2 years. What do the public want? The public want police in our neighbourhoods fighting crime. Did the Conservatives deliver that? No, they did not. Neighbourhood policing was slashed. PCSOs were halved. And what the Conservatives failed to do is tackle the fundamental problems that are needed to reform our policing. It is the most unreformed part of our public services. We will make, and the Home Secretary will make, the tough decisions in the coming weeks that will put policing on the right footing for the future.
James Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last government lost control of our borders, and the result was a ruinously expensive asylum system, using more than 400 hotels at a cost of nearly £9 million a day. We have acted to cut those costs, and now fewer than 200 hotels are in use. Our historic agreement with France is seeing small boat departures prevented, arrivals detained, and those with no right to be in the UK returned. And as the House knows, I will very shortly be making a longer statement setting out the additional steps to go further and faster in our asylum, in the reform of our asylum system.
James Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, according to a recent National Audit Office report, £15.3 billion will be spent over the next 10 years on asylum accommodation alone. That money will be spent on people, in some instances, who will commit violent and sexual crimes against the British popular people that will make our skin crawl. What do we say to our residents and our voters and our taxpayers who feel like we're spending money on people who want nothing for us but harm?
I would say to the honourable gentleman he should wait for the statement later on today, because the assumptions made by the National Audit Office in their projections are based on the current policy environment, and the current policy environment is about to very significantly change.
Peter Lamb.
Number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The UK Visas and Immigration make millions of decisions every year about who has permission to visit or stay in the UK, protecting our borders and delivering excellent customer service across the globe. Where customers require a refund, Mr. Speaker, officials in UKVI ensure they are made as swiftly as possible.
Peter Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank the Minister for his response? I have several residents who have been waiting almost a year for a refund from the Home Office. Given the dramatic improvements that we've seen in asylum application processing in the last year, can I trust the Minister to put that same zeal into ensuring that other Home Office processes work just as efficiently?
Thank the Honourable Member for his question. I'm aware of the, 3 specific issues, and I reassure the member that we are looking at those and happy to talk offline in more detail.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, the costs for those who apply are significant and sometimes push them to the wall. Whenever it comes to government getting monies back from somebody who owes them, they're very zealous, as they should be. Can I just suggest that maybe for those they owe money to, let government be just as zealous on behalf of those people? Thank you.
Thank the Honourable Member for his question, and of course we will be just as zealous with all receiving their refunds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 10.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The National Inquiry into Group-Based Child Sexual Exploitation and Abuse will mirror the Casey audit and therefore cover England and Wales. That said, all parts of the UK must work together to protect children and bring perpetrators to justice. We have committed to sharing relevant findings with devolved administrations and are considering how the inquiry's work may interact with devolved responsibilities in Scotland, including cross-area trafficking concerns.
Last week, brave grooming gang survivor Fiona Goddard spoke of how she was trafficked to Scotland as a vulnerable teenager. As she rightly said, the idea that this issue stops at the border is insane. Despite clear evidence from victims about grooming gangs operating in Scotland, the SNP government in Edinburgh still refuses to hold an inquiry. So please, will the Minister listen to victims and campaigners and extend the national inquiry to Scotland so that we ensure that young girls and teenagers are not treated in this way again?
I thank the honourable gentleman, and others from a sedentary position are stating that the SNP government in Scotland have said something different. However, what I would say is that any information about people can be given into the inquiry if they have been, so in the example that he gave, that evidence can be given into the inquiry where people are trafficked out of the UK into Scotland. But police, justice, education, children's services and health are all devolved. And that is different to the system in England and Wales, where it's just policing and justice. So we have to make sure that we are working within frameworks where the recommendations can be fully taken, but we will work with all nations to make sure that the findings make things better in the future.
Mr.
Speaker.
Minister.
We are committed, Mr. Speaker, to delivering a stronger neighbourhood policing presence in communities across England and Wales. Every neighbourhood, including those in Redditch, now has named contactable officers dedicated to addressing issues facing their communities. West Mercia Police is using its share, the £200 million made available this financial year, to grow its neighbourhood team by 51 full-time equivalent neighbourhood officers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for that answer and the extra £39 million given to West Mercia Police. But residents in Redditch have told me clearly that they want to be able to walk into their local police station and speak to an officer face to face. Does the Minister agree with me and the many hundreds of constituents who have already signed my petition that the new police station in Redditch should reinstate a public-facing front desk?
As my honourable friend will know, it's a matter for the Chief Constable as to how these resources are spent, but we're clear that visible policing is essential to restoring public confidence in police, and we have invested £30 million since we came to power in new IT systems to make it easier for the public also to report crime, and that's why we're ensuring everyone has a named contactable neighbourhood officer that they can call on.
Mike Wood.
Number 12, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. An arbitrary limit on legal migration would serve no one. As we've seen in the past, attempts to implement such caps have been unsuccessful. I remind the honourable member of 1 million in 1 year under the previous government, undercutting British workers. Instead, this government has set out a plan to reduce net migration by restoring control to the immigration system, reducing our reliance on overseas labour and investing in domestic skills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister not recognise that an important step towards significantly reducing net migration would be to make it clear to all working in his department or handling migration that there is a number that everyone is working towards? And if that's the case, surely members of this House should be able to vote on that binding cap, as happens successfully in other countries like Australia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's always amusing to be lectured about immigration by the opposite party. There are more sophisticated ways to address the issue of high net migration. This government is doing that by tackling the underlying causes of over-reliance on migrant labour by employers, alongside raising the bar on who can come to the UK and targeted visa restrictions.
Alison Griffiths.
Number 13, please, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, as set out on multiple occasions in this House, no ministers, no special advisers played any role in the provision of evidence. The DPP has confirmed this publicly.
Alice Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our judicial system is rightly rigorous and independent, and that's why the government's handling of intelligence central to national security and passing it to prosecutors matters so much. So as the Minister responsible for our state threats framework and domestic security, can the Home Secretary tell us when she was first alerted to concerns that crucial evidence hadn't been passed to the CPS? And does she agree that the public deserves a full and frank account of how 2 alleged Chinese spies were able to walk free?
Well, Mr. Speaker, what I can say to the Honourable Lady is that this was an independent decision by the CPS. We have repeatedly made clear that there was absolutely no political interference in the evidence provided. This government is extremely disappointed with the outcome in this case and remain concerned about the espionage threat posed to the UK, and we're working relentlessly to counter it.
Number 14, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government remains steadfast in its support for Hong Kongers in the UK and remains fully committed to the BNO route. We will consult on the earned settlement scheme shortly, and everyone will be welcome to participate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reading is proud to be a town of many immigrant diasporas, including the Hong Kong BNOs who are seeking refuge here. Many of my immigrant constituents have lived in our community for years and work incredibly hard so that they can put down roots, much as my parents did when I was a child. So will the Minister acknowledge the contributions of immigrant families who enrich towns like mine when making policy about settlement periods?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely, across the board, we recognise the contribution from migrant communities, and specifically the Hong Kong community. We are listening to their views about the route to settlement, and of course will continue to do so.
Good evening, Moss.
Mr. Speaker, the case for legal migration, the case for those genuinely seeking asylum is undermined by evidence that in Station Road in my constituency, businesses are exploiting migrants to carry out illegal trading, and businesses locally are shocked and frustrated that when police are raiding those premises, they remain open and continue trading. Will the government consider bringing forward legislation to provide for immediate closure of illegally trading shops?
Thank the honourable member for his question. Mr. Speaker, this is something we take extremely seriously in the Home Office. It's something that's out of control after the previous government left us with a broken system. That's why in just over a year and a half we've increased arrests by 50% and visits by 63%. That's the highest in British history and will continue on that route.
Ms. Murray. Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recognise the huge pressure that asylum hotels have placed on communities. This government is committed to exiting asylum hotels by the end of the Parliament. We have already halved the number of hotels in use since the peak under the Conservative Party, but I would like to go faster, which is why I am exploring the use of large sites, including military sites.
Chris Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I draw the House's attention to my declaration of interest. I thank the Home Secretary for that response. The Home Affairs Select Committee report on asylum accommodation shows private companies have made millions from the taxpayer, while communities and asylum seekers have suffered. What is the Home Secretary doing to address this appalling profiteering the Tories allowed in the disastrous asylum contracts? And will she trigger the break clause next year?
Thank my honourable friend for his question. So far, the amount that has been recouped by this government is £74 million, of which £46 million is excess profit. The remainder is service charges or service credits and VAT. We are rapidly reviewing the contracts that we inherited, including the break clause, to ensure that they are providing value for money for taxpayers, and I will keep this matter under review and update the House in due course.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last Home Secretary said we should judge the success of the government in smashing the gangs by whether the number of channel crossings falls. By which date should we judge the government in whether it's been successful, and if the Home Secretary fails, will she resign?
Well, we should already recognise that the action on law enforcement, and particularly the cooperation with our colleagues in France and Germany, has led to the confiscation of kit that was being used by organised immigration crime gangs, and has led to 20,000 illegal crossings from taking place. We are going to set out later on today a full suite of measures designed to decrease the number of arrivals across the Channel. And I, unlike many in his party, take my responsibilities very seriously, and I'm very happy to be held to account by the British public.
Ewan Steinback.
The government have already acted to fix the unworkable mess the Tories left the asylum system in. 116% increased the processing in 1 year, bringing down the backlog, securing refugee status for those fleeing persecution and removing those with no right to be here. But communities such as Falkirk must see the benefit of this difference in approach. What steps will the Home Secretary be taking to guarantee Tory-created asylum hotels will be closed equitably across the nations of the United Kingdom?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that question. We are working across government with ministers on closing every hotel as soon as possible, and by the end of this Parliament. As we've all seen, it's a complex process, must be delivered through a controlled and managed and orderly programme of work. We don't want to be in a situation where, without an alternative ready, we start exiting hotels before it is time to do so. But I can assure him we will take a balanced and evidence-based approach towards the decision-making that we will make here on the locations that we will use and how we will exit hotels, and I look forward to talking to him in more detail about these plans in due course.
Pete Wishaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government is currently spending some £2.1 billion on hotels, and it isn't working, and it doesn't have to be this way. PCS, and together with refugees, have shown that a humane asylum system that expedites asylum hearings and supports employment could reduce asylum costs by 40%. Will she at least look at the evidence and concede that she doesn't always have to try and outdo the Honourable Member for Clacton?
What I would say to the honourable gentleman is that what I'm interested in is recognising the extent of the problems that this government has inherited and coming up with proper solutions to those problems. For me, this is not about party politics or individual politicians. It's a moral mission to fix a broken system that is unfair, costing the country far too much money and putting huge pressure on communities. So I would say to him, engage with the detail of the proposal rather than playing party politics himself.
We come to Topical. Seamus Logan.
Mr. Speaker.
Take care, Mike.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to start with some very good news indeed. One of the heroes of the Huntingdon attack, Samir Zitouni, the member of the train's crew who risked his own life to save others, has been discharged from hospital. There is a long road ahead of him now, and his family have asked for privacy. But I'm sure the whole House joins me in wishing him the swiftest and fullest recovery possible. Since the last Home Office oral questions, I have made a number of significant announcements. A review of police protest powers was launched last weekend, and I'm pleased to say that the former Director of Public Prosecutions, Lord Ken MacDonald, will lead it. Last week, we announced that police and crime commissioners will be abolished. The introduction of police and crime commissioners by the last government was a failed experiment. I will introduce new reforms so police are accountable to their mayoralties or local councils. The savings from this will fund more neighbourhood policing on the beat across the country, fighting crime and protecting our communities. I would like to recognise the efforts of all current and former police and crime commissioners and thank them because they served their communities with honour and will continue to do so until they have completed their current...
It's far too long an introduction because I'm still going to get people in. Please, we've got to shorten it down. Seamus Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Muscatelli report commissioned by the Labour Party in Scotland recommended that the Scottish Government push for a bespoke immigration approach that tackles the unique issues faced in Scotland and its economy. And while the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, Anna Sauer, may be a bit confused about what is devolved and reserved, I'm sure the Secretary of State is not. Will the Secretary of State meet with me to discuss this report further to deliver a win for the Scottish economy and fulfil one of the manifesto commitments of the Labour Party in Scotland?
Not, because immigration is a reserved matter, and to try to devolve this matter would create perverse pull factors all across the United Kingdom, which would be deeply inappropriate.
Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The data centre in Camas in my constituency, £10 billion investment, together with other subsea interconnectors, for example, it looks as if my constituency is being a plug-in centre for critical national infrastructure. With that in mind, can the Minister give me some advice as to whether or not terrorism is being looked at as a serious issue because of the investment in what's happening in patches like mine in Camas?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman raises an important point, and I can say to him that the assessment of the terrorist threat to the UK is made independently by JTAC. Government partners, including JTAC, MPSA and counter-terrorism police, work closely with industry to ensure the latest threat picture is appropriately responded to by owners of CNI. I would, of course, be happy to discuss it further with my honourable friend.
The Home Secretary Shabana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last October, a Sudanese small boat illegal immigrant murdered 27-year-old Rhiannon White by stabbing her 23 times with a screwdriver. In September, an illegal immigrant from Egypt was jailed for brutally raping a young woman in Hyde Park. And just last week, an Iranian and 2 Egyptian small boat illegal immigrants were committed for trial for the rape of a 33-year-old woman on Brighton Beach. How many more murders and rapes must there be before the Home Secretary agrees to the immediate deportation of all illegal immigrants within a week of arrival?
The last case is sub judice, so please be careful on the answer. Thank you. Minister.
Grateful for that clarification, Mr. Speaker. We are totally clear. Those who commit crimes should not get settlement or citizenship in this country. Those who commit crimes should be removed. That's why we've reached removals at their highest levels for a decade. There is much more we can do in this space, and that's why the Home Secretary is making the statement she's going to make later.
Colin.
Speaker, in Staffordshire there are proposals to limit the hours of PCSOs in the evening. I welcome the named police officers that are returning to my constituency, but will she ensure that the neighbourhood policing guarantee will mean more PCSOs on our streets, not less?
My honourable friend is right to raise this. We will make sure that there are more neighbourhood officers on our streets, 3,000 more by next April. But of course, PCSOs have a really vital role to play, and I'm a big fan, and I want to encourage all forces to have more.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Max Wilkinson.
Mr. Speaker, ahead of the budget next week, the Labour Chancellor departed from years of silence on the matter by admitting that Brexit has been a disaster for our economy. Will the Labour Home Secretary now follow the Chancellor's lead by admitting that Brexit has also caused significant harm to this country's ability to maintain order in our immigration and asylum system?
I am slightly reticent, Mr. Speaker, to enter into the Brexit theory of everything with the honourable gentleman. The reality is we have the settlement we have. The British people rightly want to understand why asylum numbers are falling across Europe but increasing in the UK. That's why we're taking the actions we're proposing to take, and you won't have to wait much longer to hear the detail of them.
Boris Curtis.
Mr. Speaker, what steps is the Home Secretary taking to counter the rise of extremist narratives, whether domestic or foreign-backed, that seek to undermine our democratic processes?
Mr. Speaker, everyone deserves to feel safe and be able to participate fully in public and political life, free from the threat of violence or exclusion driven by hateful prejudice. We will persist in our efforts to challenge extremist narratives, disrupt the activity of radicalising groups and directly tackle the causes of radicalisation. Alongside our work to tackle extremism, the Defending Democracy Task Force is driving forward a whole-of-government response to the full range of threats we face to our democracy.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've been contacted by constituents concerned that a group calling itself Justice for Innocent Men Scotland is allegedly harassing victims of sexual violence by undermining their anonymity. So can the Minister tell me what the UK Government is going to do to protect women across the UK from this sort of targeting and harassment?
I thank the Honourable Lady for raising this case with me, and I'd be more happy to look into it in more detail, but it is a fundamental principle that victims of sexual violence are entitled by law to anonymity, and to breach that anonymity is actually, it is a crime. And so I would be very interested to hear from her and see how we can make sure that this isn't happening.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Home Secretary will be aware of the existing asset recovery incentivisation scheme, which uses seized criminal assets to fund enforcement agencies in their work tackling economic crime. There are, however, concerns around the lumpy nature of the funding model, which can see wild variations in financial support year in, year out for the likes of the CPS, local police forces and the SFO. Will the Minister therefore meet with me to discuss the merits of introducing a ring-fence, multi-year funding pot for law enforcement agencies tackling economic crime?
Mr. Speaker, I can say to my honourable friend that the Department is absolutely committed to reinvesting criminal proceeds into asset recovery and related economic crime. 24-25, 174 million supported law enforcement, including through the ARIS top slice, a multi-year fund that's ring-fenced for core and innovative capabilities. We are reviewing ARIS with stakeholders to improve stability and effectiveness. I know that my honourable friend is engaging with the noble Lord Flint, but I'd be very happy to discuss it with him further.
Clive Jones. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In Wokingham, many businesses have created their own text warning system to notify each other when known shoplifters are about in the town. Preventing crime should not be their priority. Selling their product should be their priority. Will the government commit to reversing Conservative cuts to police officer numbers by increasing the number of police officers on the beat to tackle crime, ease residents' concern and protect high street businesses?
The honourable gentleman points to a really awful crime that was very much overlooked by the previous government. We are changing the system where this £200 rule, where crimes wouldn't be investigated if they were less than 200, will be scrapped. We're bringing in the new offence, which my honourable friend championed for in opposition of assaults against shop workers. This needs a really targeted response. We know that a lot of local police are working really closely with the co-op group, with others, to make sure we target the prolific offenders who are responsible for the vast amount of this crime.
Andy MacDonald.
Speaker, the Government has tabled an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill, giving sweeping powers to impose conditions on public protests based on cumulative disruption. Can the Minister set out in the House what's meant in that amendment by serious disruption to a community, and how will this be determined or measured, and indeed subject to democratic scrutiny?
It will probably take longer than the answer of a topical question, but I'm very happy to speak to my honourable friend about this. The definition of serious disruption is not changing, but this is the conditions on which a police force can put conditions on a protest, not banning a protest, but very happy to have more conversations with him.
Rupert Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Home Secretary agree that if a migrant, legal or illegal, can't speak English, claims benefits, lives in social housing, refuses to work, rejects integration, commits crime, is a drain on our society, or even actively hates Britain and wishes to do us harm, that they should be removed from our country, regardless of how many millions of deportations that will inevitably result in?
I'm sad that the honourable gentleman has a different characterisation to the one I have from my own community about those who seek refuge in this country, because that isn't my experience. We are clear that if individuals commit crime, there must of course be consequences for that, including their removal from this country. But as I say, the honourable gentleman won't have to wait much longer to hear what the Home Secretary has to say, but I can't recognise his characterisation.
Boris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a lifelong political activist and trades unionist, I value free speech and the right to protest. Now, having lived through the miners' strike, I know what it means when the state turns against working people and disregards their rights. So I'm deeply concerned that the proposed amendments to the Crime and Policing Bill will allow police to prohibit marches, demonstrations and even picket lines simply because another is taking place in the same area. Can the Minister guarantee that this House will have sufficient time to debate and vote on these amendments?
Can I thank my honourable friend? Just to be really clear, this isn't about stopping marches, it's about conditions, so the length of time, the geography of them, and of course the right to protest is one that we on this side of the House will always champion.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the government looking to impose visa sanctions to tackle illegal migration, why did they vote against such measures as part of the Border Security Bill? And if Labour MPs won't swallow these plans, what will she do as a backup?
Well, the honourable gentleman is in so many ways ahead of his time. In fact, no, I may well be the first person to accuse him of that. But he will have those opportunities to hear from the Home Secretary as to our plans with regards to visa sanctions. He just has to wait a little bit longer.
Brenda Jess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Crimes committed by grooming gangs are amongst the most horrific imaginable, with their devastating impact felt by the victims for the rest of their lives. So, does the Minister agree that the national inquiry into grooming gangs should be implemented without delay, the victims are kept at the heart of our response, and their voices and experiences lead the inquiry so that some justice can finally be delivered for those impacted?
I thank my honourable friend, and of course I agree entirely with him, and we are working urgently to establish the inquiry, and Baroness Casey is supporting this work, and she and I met with some of those that he is talking about very recently, and I look forward to updating the House.
Peter Bedford.
The Home Office have requested transitional accommodation for asylum claimants following the closure of Garrett's Hay, my constituency. However, neither Leicestershire County Council nor Charnwood Borough Council have been consulted or have received any additional funding for this extra burden. Why have these councils been bypassed, and will they get the funding that they need?
All local authorities get an extra payment of £1,200 when someone in the supported estate ends up in their local authority. So I can't quite understand the characterisation there. If I'm wrong on that point, I would be keen to meet with the honourable gentleman to understand it, because we appreciate that there is an impact on local communities. We want to make sure that people can live there as smoothly as possible, and we want to get that right.
Jonathan Brash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hartlepool Police do a magnificent job, but like the rest of the Cleveland Force area, they are hamstrung by a funding formula that is broken. The Victims Core Grant sees £7 per crime in my constituency, and down the road in North Yorkshire, £19 per crime. This is unfair and unjust. Can the Minister please commit to fixing this fundamental unfairness?
My honourable friend's right that for many years the opposition wanted to look at police funding formula and never did. The Home Secretary will be bringing forward our police reform white paper, which will set the context within which we will look at future funding, but the allocations for this year are being looked at as we speak, and I hear the honourable gentleman.
Mira Wilson.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State will be aware that the Met Police have recently proposed to close or scale back the hours of operation of a number of police front counters across London. Some of these plans were recently scaled back, apparently in response to public feedback, but the Twickenham police front counter is still earmarked for closure, with only 15 people invited to an online meeting for that feedback. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that the Mayor of London and the Met Police have a duty to do a full public consultation on these plans?
The Honourable Lady is right, there was a consultation. There are 7 fewer station front counters that are now going to be closed than were, but she is right that Twickenham is not one of those. I think we need to judge the police in London on their outcomes and the work that Sadiq Khan has done, with the lowest number of murders since Record Brigand. Fraser Nelson, that well-known socialist, writing just this week, look past the headlines, London is not a bad place to be, the city's winning the battle over violent crime.
David.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last month across my constituency there was an increase in knife crime, and this wasn't necessarily carried out by younger people but by older people, and I know this is an area where the government is determined to crack down on knife crime. Can the government therefore say what more they are doing in this area to tackle knife crime?
Can I thank my honourable friend? Of course, nationally we've taken 60,000 knives off the streets, and knife murders are down 18% and knife crime is down 5%. But of course, every single offence is one too many, and we will keep pushing both in terms of the policing response, but crucially the prevention response, so that we can work with our young people to stop them getting involved in crime in the first place.
Julian Lewis.
It's often reported that a high proportion of people who enter the country illegally do so without any reliable identifying documentation. Can any minister say in percentage terms roughly what the proportions are of who has and who has not documentation amongst illegal immigration?
I'll have to follow in writing with the specific percentages to the right honourable gentleman, but I would want to give him and the House assurance that at that front door, we are taking full biometric checks, we are checking them against European databases as well as our own databases to make sure we know who's here, and if there is any offending history, what that history is.
Callum Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Returning to rural crime, I wanted to take the opportunity to pay tribute to the work that the Thames Valley Police Rural Crime Task Force is providing rural communities and farmers in the Buckingham and Bletchley constituency. With regards to the national rural crime strategy itself, can the Minister set out some more detail about how it will complement the work that's already been done by local forces and whether that strategy will be complemented by a long-term funding model?
I am going to see Thames Valley Police on this exact subject very shortly, and will let him know, so perhaps he can come with me. Of course, the NPCC crime strategy will build on the work that's already been done in Thames Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the major pull factors for illegal migrants crossing the Channel is the fact that they can quite easily get a job. So does the Home Secretary still support an amnesty for all undocumented workers?
That's not the position of the government. We are resolute in our attempts to tackle illegal working, which do act as a pull factor to this country. I would encourage colleagues, we have the Borders Bill returning to us on Wednesday. That, of course, contains really important provisions around the loopholes in the gig economy that can allow for substitution, that allows that space for illegal working. If we want to stop that, we should get that bill moving as quickly as we can.
Lincoln Job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that the Permanent Secretary at the Home Office has recently appointed a single official, senior official, responsible for asylum hotels. Please could the Home Secretary use her good offices to encourage that official to come to the Stanwell Hotel in my Spelthorne constituency so that they can see for themselves how inappropriate it is in the context of the village there, and prioritise it for closure.
Well, the Honourable Gentleman and I have had this conversation about Stanwell before, and he presses it with his characteristic vigour. I will say to him and his community, we have committed to closing these hotels in this Parliament. They won't be open a day longer than they have to be. When we are closing hotels, there will be a clear criteria as to why they were chosen, and he makes a lot of very good suggestions as to what grounds might be used.
Adam.
Okay, in recent years, there's been a real increase in racist attacks in this country, including on our NHS staff, who have seen a rise of 55%. Also, very recently, 2 Sikh women were just not racially abused, they were also sexually abused. Does the Secretary of State fear that implementing asylum policies like those in Denmark will further exacerbate the situation and embolden those that will create hate amongst our streets?
Well, my honourable friend, the Police Minister, met with a delegation of Sikh colleagues on that very, very important case recently. On the broader point with regards to Denmark, it is right that given the challenges we have in this country, we seek to draw on the best from around Europe and around the world in our policies. And I say to the honourable gentleman, he won't have to wait much longer to see the fruits of that.
For the message,
Mr. Speaker, last week the Policing Minister told me the funding allocation will be made in the usual way before the end of the year. There is more money going into policing this year, and we will ensure that it is being given where it is needed. So can the Minister clarify for my constituents that irrespective of more money going into policing, the Government is going to update the police allocation formula this year that will give Cambridgeshire its fair share, because the neighbourhood policing guarantee means nothing if our local police forces are underfunded compared to their neighbouring forces?
I wouldn't say that the neighbourhood guarantee with an extra £200 million means nothing. It means quite a substantial amount for all our communities across England and Wales, and the allocations will be decided in the usual way this year.
Wendy Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a former police officer, I've policed protests and I know how important they are. But on the issue of cumulative disruption, can the Minister set out for the House what evidence she has gathered to demonstrate that when a protest is deemed safe as a one-off, it would become a public safety risk if it was repeated over time?
The Honourable Lady is aware of these issues, and she's aware of the complex relationship between with policing as to how you manage to police what can sometimes be very disruptive and very upsetting protests, and we have to get that balance right. That's what we're trying to do, and I'm very happy to have more conversations with her about it.
Question, Joshua Runnels.
Shops in Maidenhead Town Centre tell me how pleased they are to see neighbourhood police officers doing their regular patrols, but those shops outside of the town centre don't see those patrols as regularly and struggle with shoplifting more as a result. Can the Minister tell me what she's doing to try and tackle that so we have more neighbourhood police in the actual communities, not just in our town centres?
Of course, he speaks to a challenge that policing have in terms of their resources, and what we're trying to do through the White Paper and the reform programme is to make sure that our police officers are able to spend all their time doing the things that we want them to be doing, not bureaucracy, not police staff jobs, not behind a counter, but out in our communities fighting crime.
Let the front bench change over. Right, we now come to the urgent question. Shadow Chancellor Sir Mel Stride.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Chancellor of the Exchequer if she will make a statement on briefings to the press about the contents of the budget.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every minister in this government takes their obligations to this House very seriously. There has been much speculation, as is usual, ahead of a budget, but the Chancellor will come to this House on November the 26th and deliver a budget which will protect the NHS and public services. It will support growth, enabling businesses to create jobs and to innovate. It will support those struggling with the cost of living, protecting families from high inflation and interest rates. And it will get debt falling, because the less we spend on debt interest, the more we can spend on the priorities of working people. As you would rightly expect, Mr. Speaker, I am not going to comment on individual measures today. The Chancellor has asked the Office of Budget Responsibility to produce a forecast. The OBR and the Treasury exchange information throughout the forecast process, which is the usual practice that has been established over many years. The Chancellor will take decisions based on that forecast, and we will set out our fiscal plans at the budget next week in the usual way. The OBR is making an assessment of the productivity performance of the previous government. We will not allow the mistakes of the previous government to determine our country's future. That is why the budget next week will be guided by this government's values of fairness and opportunity and focused entirely on the priorities of the British people. Stability remains at the heart of our approach. By building more resilient public finances with the headroom to withstand global turbulence, we will give businesses the confidence to invest and leave government freer to act when the situation calls for it. We will continue to meet our ironclad fiscal rules, which allow the government to invest in homes, transport, energy security and infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, taking this action means we can continue to build a strong foundation for our economy, because that is the route to securing Britain's future.
Sir Mel Stride.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, given that response, the right honourable gentleman might try a bit of stand-up, actually, in his spare time. Mr. Speaker, the process around the budget is meant to be the most closely guarded secret in government. But in recent weeks, we have barely been able to pick up a newspaper without a fresh report of the latest policy movements. On the 6th of November, Mr. Speaker, the Times reported that the Chancellor had included increases in income tax rates in the measures sent to the OBR for scoring. Then last Thursday, the Financial Times revealed that those proposals had now been removed from the budget package. The Chancellor and her officials may think this is a game they are playing, but it has real-life consequences, impacting markets, as we saw on Friday. And more than that, Mr. Speaker, it shows an utter contempt for this House. In this place, questions about the budget are always met with the same answer. Decisions on tax will be announced at the budget. That is right and proper. But it becomes hollow and absurd when those same matters are being openly reported in the national media on a daily basis. The Chancellor even delivered a pre-budget address to the country, not in this House, Mr. Speaker, but in the Downing Street press room. So given the Chancellor has chosen not to come to the House today, can I ask the Minister, has the Chancellor or any Treasury Minister sanctioned any briefings to journalists of potential budget tax measures or the contents of the OBR's forecasts? Have any Treasury officials or special advisers conducted such briefings? Has the Chancellor or the Permanent Secretary launched an investigation into the source of the leaks? And can the Minister explain why the Chancellor seems to have confirmed that the OBR have downgraded their productivity forecasts before the budget has even taken place? Mr. Speaker, either the Chancellor has been knowingly allowing the budget process to be briefed out, or serious unauthorised leaks have occurred from her department. It has fuelled confusion and uncertainty, and it has disrespected this House.
Minister, can I just say, it isn't normal for a budget to have been put in the press. It's the okey-cokey budget. 1 minute's in, next minute's out. I am very worried, like the previous government, which also had to be reprimanded for putting leaks out. It is not good policy. At one time, a minister would be resigning for anything that was released. So what I would say is, this House should be sacrosanct in all decisions and should be heard here first. So please do pass on the message, Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can reassure you that every minister in this government takes their responsibility to this House very seriously, and I will not engage with speculation, and I'm not going to comment on the ongoing budget process. But everyone in this House and beyond can be very clear of what the Chancellor's priorities are going into that budget. We will meet the ironclad fiscal rules. We will make public finances more resilient. We will reduce inflationary pressures, and we will get the cost of borrowing down, because that is the way to focus on the priorities of the British people, which is to protect the NHS, to bear down on the cost of living, and to reduce the national debt.
Dame Beck-Elliott, Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's either been a leak or wild speculation about the budget. It would be helpful if the Minister could advise us which it is. And in doing so, could he outline, as he will not obviously go into detail quite rightly a week before the budget, what the strategic objectives of this budget are for the country?
Well, I thank my right honourable friend for her intervention. And, Mr. Speaker, regrettably, there is always noise and speculation ahead of a budget, but I'm not going to comment on that speculation. But as the Chancellor set out in her speech earlier this month, although there are challenges that we face going into the budget, we're very clear about what the priorities of this government are, which is to make the public finances more resilient, to reduce inflationary pressures, and to bring down the cost of borrowing, because that is the way that we can focus on the priorities of the British people, on the NHS, on the cost of living, and getting debt down.
Cooper, Liberal Democrat spokesman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These leaks are not just Westminster tittle-tattle. They have a very real impact on people's lives and their livelihoods. The cold weather has now reached all corners of Britain, and households don't know if they can afford to put the heating on because they don't know if their taxes are going up or down or staying the same. It's also just 5 weeks until Christmas, and our high streets are struggling with low consumer confidence. That's precisely why we Liberal Democrats have called for a windfall tax on the big banks to fund an emergency cut to people's energy bills and a VAT cut for hospitality, visitor accommodation and attractions. But these leaks are not just a symptom, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, they are a symptom, they are not the cause, because the problem runs much deeper. The Labour government has no vision for the country, no vision for the economy, and whatever their destination is, they are not taking the country with them. When people and the markets...
I've had Pink and Perky chipping all day. Well, this is the last one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When people and markets don't know what the government is trying to achieve, then rumours can and do run rife. It is clear that this budget is more leaky than our crumbling hospitals. So, Mr. Speaker, I should also add that the confected outrage from the Conservatives is slightly absurd because their key budget announcements were often leaked in advance as well. In one case, at least, almost word for word. Perhaps this House, Mr. Speaker, needs to move to the Swedish system, where the Swedish Parliament gets to debate the government's budget and propose alternatives and amendments before it is finalised, and gets a proper period of scrutiny and accountability in the months that follow. So, Mr. Speaker, can I ask, what is the government doing to stop these leaks? Does the government recognise that this flip-flopping is incredibly damaging to households and the markets? And will the government consider all good ideas, including from these benches?
Remind, it's 1 minute, not 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like the honourable member, I regret the fact that there is always noise and speculation ahead of a budget, but I'm not going to add to that speculation here in the chamber today. And our focus as a government is to build the strong foundations that we need for our economy, because that is the way to secure Britain's future.
John Fetterman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm often put in mind that scene in Casablanca where the official expresses surprise at gambling taking place in the casino, when I hear members opposite hearing that briefing might have taken place. Perhaps in 2017, when the key measure of that budget was leaked, perhaps in 2017, when the stamp duty in that budget came out, the member opposite was equally surprised as he was Financial Secretary to the Treasury. While there's always briefing, I'm sure the Minister agrees with me that actually the job of the Chancellor is to get the best deal for this country.
That's a toughie, that one. I think we know the answer. Stephen Bark.
Thank you. As the Minister...
That's the worst Patsy question.
Regarding market-sensitive data, obviously carry a much higher premium than other leaks that may occur within government. So could he again address the front bench's question as to why the Cabinet Secretary and the Permanent Secretary haven't been asked to launch any inquiry into these leaks?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said, I'm not going to comment on the ongoing budget process, but what the markets know is that the Chancellor's commitment to her fiscal rules is absolutely ironclad. They have been met at every fiscal event since this Parliament began, and they will be met next Wednesday.
Sorry, Tim Madders.
Mr. Speaker, I think the problem we've got is we've got an insatiable 24/7 media that wants stories and sometimes they will generate their own. All this speculation has created uncertainty which has hampered investment, which I know is not what the Treasury want to see. So can the Minister be clear from the dispatch box that any more speculation that we read about won't have been authorised by anyone in government?
Mr. Speaker, as I made clear, every minister in this government takes the responsibility to this House very seriously, and I'm not going to engage in further speculation today. But what we are seeking to achieve in the budget next week is to make sure that in meeting her ironclad fiscal rules, which the Chancellor has committed to do, we provide that extra headroom to give more resilience to the public finances, reduce inflationary pressures, and get down the cost of borrowing.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor had a press conference where everyone afterwards inferred that income tax was going to go up. On Friday, every newspaper said that income tax wasn't going to go up. It's plainly obvious to the general public and anyone who reads any of the papers that everything is being briefed from the Treasury or Number 11. Surely the Minister needs to come to terms with that and face up to the fact this has a horrendous effect on business confidence and consumer confidence, doing the economy a lot of damage.
Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, regrettably, there is always noise and speculation ahead of a budget. But in reference to the Chancellor's speech earlier this month, the reason why the Chancellor set out the challenges that we're facing in a country was to be straightforward with the British people about the challenges that we face and to be clear about her priorities, which are to protect the NHS, to bear down the cost of living and to get national debt down.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Chief Secretary agree that the Tories are still as irresponsible as they were under Liz Truss? Blindly promising 47 billion of cuts to justify their wacky fiscal policies. It seems to me, and would he agree, just like back of the fag packet territory that we're in now. And does he agree that the Chancellor is going to deliver an excellent budget next week?
Mr. Speaker, I agree entirely that the party opposite have learnt nothing nor apologised at all for what happened under the short-lived government of Liz Truss. And frankly, when they were talking about their savings that they apparently identified recently, to talk about welfare savings when the Shadow Chancellor is the man who presided over the biggest increase in the welfare bill in decades is frankly not credible.
Lisa Smart.
Mr. Speaker, on one level this is all just a bit embarrassing, isn't it? But on the other level this is having a real impact on business confidence and the ability of local businesses to make decisions about investment and about their future. Does the Minister agree with me that this is all just a bit self-defeating, isn't it?
Minister.
I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to say in response to that question. I would rather this urgent question hadn't been asked today. Yes, there are other things that we could be doing, but I think it's important to underline to you, Mr. Speaker, that every minister in his government takes their responsibility to the South very seriously.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm astonished to see the opposite benches cheer and jeer as the Chief Secretary makes this statement. If I remember correctly, when we first took office after the election, we were told about how the opposite benches had mishandled the economy, mishandled Brexit, mishandled the pandemic, spent the reserves 3 times over, and promised money for sensitive schemes when they didn't have that money just to try and win the election. So could I ask the Chief Secretary if he could tell the House properly how decisions are made in the budget process and what we were left with when we first took office?
Minister.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right that our priority is to take the right decisions, to provide stability and the secure foundations for the long-term future of this country. And it's true that we inherited a mess from the party opposite and indeed the OBR, and are looking at the record of the previous government when it comes to productivity. But we've been clear that we're not going to repeat, or we're not going to let the mistakes of the previous government determine this country's future. We'll take the right decisions for the future of this country.
Then Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And this speculation was actually inflamed by the Chancellor herself giving a speech to the press conference. And surely one of the most damaging aspects of this speculation was that there might be an exit tax on wealthy people fleeing the country as a result of the speculation in the media. Speculation on an exit tax was only just ruled out, but many, many people have fled in the interim. There has been a real cost to the Exchequer from all of this speculation. So will the Minister confirm that there will be a leak inquiry?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've made clear, I'm not going to comment on the ongoing budget process, and nor am I going to engage in speculation about budget measures. I note that this urgent question is around speculation, which I'm not engaging with. There's actually members opposite who seem to be fanning the speculation, so I would discourage them from doing that.
Can I say, we have had leak inquiries previously when major statements are coming out. They may be contradicted within days, but they're obviously coming from somewhere. It is worthwhile thinking about. Lawrence Turner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Minister said in his response that the Treasury and the OBR are exchanging information, but that did not happen in a period immediately before the last election when spending pressures were withheld from the OBR in a way that the Chair said may have broken the law. Will he confirm that that failure is being corrected for under this government?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and he's right to point out that the process between the OBR and the Treasury has been strengthened to be more robust and more transparent under this government. And of course it is an iterative process whereby the OBR share their forecast with us, we share our measures or our proposed measures with them, and it iterates throughout the budget process, culminating in the budget itself on November the 26th.
Stephen Flynn.
Because there's no doubt that the chaos and uncertainty of this budget process is having enormous consequences for the credibility of the Labour Party and even maybe for the Minister himself at the dispatch box today. But I'm surprisingly less interested in that. I'm more interested in the damage that the government's policies are having on my constituents and their livelihoods. So I'm not asking him to speculate, I'm just asking him to clarify. Does he acknowledge that if the EPL continues in its current form, more of my constituents will lose their jobs?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to take lessons on credibility from the honourable gentleman, but what I will say is that he is inviting me to speculate on budget measures, and I will not do so.
David.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Chief Secretary confirm that this will be a budget that prioritises economic growth?
I can absolutely confirm that, Mr. Speaker.
Bernard Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask the Minister if I've got this right? The Chancellor made a speech to try and reassure the markets that she was going to plug the enormous black hole in the government's finances. That did reassure the markets to an extent, and the forecast borrowing costs fell. The OBR adjusted their forecast, and then the Chancellor decided that she didn't need to take the measures she had announced in her speech, and the markets have now reacted adversely. This all against the background that the cost of borrowing today has all year been higher than the peak under the supposed Liz Truss disastrous budget. What sort of confidence is that going to give to the British economy?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is incorrect to say that the Chancellor announced measures in her speech earlier this month. All measures are announced on budget day. What the Chancellor set out in her speech earlier this month were the challenges that we're facing as a country and the priorities that will guide her about making the public finances more resilient, with more headroom, to reduce inflationary pressures and to get the cost of borrowing down.
Jacob Collier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chief Secretary will be aware of the vital role that beer and pubs play in my constituency, the beer capital of Britain. So as the Chancellor finalises the budget, will she ensure that this sector, which is facing significant pressure, receives the support that it deserves to thrive and continue serving our communities?
Well, Mr. Speaker, whilst I've made clear I won't speculate on what will be in the budget, I will note my honourable friend's passionate case for support for the pub sector, which is so important to all of us and all of our constituents.
Andrew Mitchell. Sir Andrew.
Mr. Speaker, does the Minister have any understanding at all of the impact of this incontinent briefing and leaking? Contradictory rumours about pensions, inheritance tax and housing, which is enraging so many of my constituents in the royal town of Sutton Coldfield. Does he not agree that normally an omnishambles happens once the budget speech has been delivered and not while it's still being crafted?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've said earlier in my remarks today, there is always noise and speculation ahead of a budget, but I'm not going to engage in speculation about what the Chancellor is going to announce on November the 26th, because that is when she sets it all out.
Chris Vence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I promise the Chamber I won't repeat any of the stories about my mum's career in the HMRC. However, the Minister will know that tax evasion is something that I take very, very seriously. He will be aware that it costs the Treasury billions of pounds each year. So I appreciate he can't speculate what's in the budget, but will he commit his department to be really looking seriously about how we tackle tax evasion with serious investment in the HMRC?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, whilst my honourable friend is right that I can't speculate on the contents of the budget, I can thank his mother for her years of service to HMRC. And I can also reassure both her and him and the whole House that tackling tax avoidance, tax evasion and closing the tax gap is a top priority for this government.
Bobby Dean.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister is right to point out that speculation ahead of a budget is not abnormal, but we've actually had speculation throughout most of this year. And I wonder if he will accept that part of the reason is the way that the Chancellor has both constructed and applied her fiscal rules. She set them up with good intentions. We do need fiscal rules in place, but she left herself with minimal headroom in a pretty volatile global economy. And that drives speculation all year round about how she's going to fill the gaps that emerge throughout the year. Does he think that that was a mistake?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, and he's right to point to the importance of fiscal headroom in order to make sure public finances are resilient, and that's exactly why the Chancellor has set out that one of her priorities in this budget, in meeting the ironclad fiscal rules, is to ensure that we have more resilient public finances so the government is free to act when the situation calls for it.
So Desmond Swire.
Given the blatant breach of pre-budget purdah, will the Chancellor follow the proper example set by Hugh Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I fear my history is not good enough to know exactly what that question. I feel embarrassed to admit that I'm not entirely clear, but I suspect I probably don't agree with him, whatever it is, and I'll leave it at that.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the chaos around this budget, none of us, frankly, would be at all surprised if the very date itself changed. But nevertheless, is the Treasury aware how incompetent they look in the eyes of the markets who are utterly aghast? How incompetent it looks in the eyes of businesses who've stopped investing and stopped hiring?
Minister.
I can assure the honourable gentleman that the budget is next week on Wednesday, November the 26th, and I also can reassure him that businesses are welcoming the Chancellor's ironclad commitment to her fiscal rules.
John Morrison.
Does the Chancellor recognise that her trailing of a mansion tax for houses that are nothing of the sort has caused deep anxiety for thousands of people, including many pensioners in my constituency, who could not afford a potential doubling of their council tax?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I made clear earlier in my remarks, it's regrettable the level of noise and speculation ahead of a budget, but I'm not going to engage in further speculation on these measures today.
Okay. So Julian Lewis.
I'm disappointed that the Minister doesn't know of the example of the Chancellor who resigned from Attlee's government for inadvertently or otherwise leaking details of the budget. But does he at least appreciate that there is a difference between speculating about the contents of a budget and leaking the budget and asking whether or not there should be any punishment for people who leak the budget, irrespective of whatever the details were?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I repeat what I said earlier about the approach of ministers in this government, which is every minister in this government takes their responsibility to this House very seriously, and I'm not going to engage in further speculation about the contents of the budget.
Dr. Elpington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Surrey Heath, I've had meetings with businesses and constituents who tell me that they have changed their decisions based on the speculation that they have seen over recent weeks and months. We've heard about the rage that some people have felt. In my constituency, it has been anxiety that I've heard from people who have drawn down their pension pots, who have not perhaps pursued the house purchase that they were looking at. Does the Honourable Gentleman agree with me that whatever the reality, whether it be speculation or whether it be leaks, that this situation is deeply regrettable, and if the Minister can do anything at all, please ensure that this never happens again?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can reassure the honourable gentleman that I am not adding to the speculation around the budget. It is regrettable that there is noise and speculation around the budget, because the right way for budgets to be conducted is for those measures to be iterated with the Office of Budget Responsibility in the normal way, with the forecasts and measures being exchanged between Treasury and the OBR, and for the package of measures in full to be announced by the Chancellor on Budget Day.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In some ways, at least, this Chancellor is improving. Her budget last year unravelled within a day. This year, the budget's unravelled before it's been announced. We know why the Chief Secretary is refusing to answer the question about the leak inquiry. It's because the Chancellor knows exactly who leaked the details of the budget, because she sees that face every day in the mirror. This all goes back to the budget last year. In Labour's manifesto, they said that they would limit spending increases by the year 28-29 to £9.5 billion a year. In the budget, they increased spending by £76 billion a year. That's 8 times higher. Now, before the Chief Secretary starts spouting the £22 billion fiction, 9.5 plus 22 equals a lot less than £76 billion, doesn't it?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, at the budget last year, we took the right decisions to fix the public finances and to get the NHS and public services back on their feet. We could not carry on with the way that public services were, the way that we inherited them. We could not carry on with public finances in the way they were that we inherited them. We have restored stability because that is a prerequisite for functioning public services, for investment and for growth.
Morton.
Leaks, unauthorised briefing, speculation or maybe not speculation. It's creating instability, it's creating chaos, it's creating volatility even, and uncertainty for the markets, for businesses and for households in my constituency. So why will the Minister not answer the Shadow Chancellor's question about having an inquiry into what has actually happened? Let's get to the bottom of this.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said, I'm not going to comment on the ongoing budget process, but in terms of stability that the Honourable Lady mentioned, stability is at the heart of our approach, which is why building more resilient public finances with the headroom to withstand global turbulence is so important in giving businesses that confidence to invest.
Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there appears to have been a lot of speculation about this budget, and it seems to have been the same measures that have been speculated on by a number of different news sources, which is somewhat suspicious of a leak. The Honourable Gentleman, the Minister, must surely recognise there is a possibility of a leak, in which case either he knows who the leak was and that's why he doesn't want to investigate, or he doesn't know the leaks was, in which case he should want to investigate. So I'm not asking Mr. Speaker to speculate on the contents of the budget, so please don't give me that answer again. Why won't you institute a leak inquiry?
Mr. Speaker, a number of the Honourable Lady's colleagues have asked the same question today, and my answer has been consistent throughout, which is that I'm not going to comment on the ongoing budget process.
Seamus Logan.
Mr. Speaker, the chaos and the confusion at the heart of this government is deeply damaging to Scotland, to its economy and to its public services. Constant leaks, briefings, U-turns flowing from the Treasury make the Scottish Government's task all the more difficult, worsened by the Chancellor's refusal to date to meet with the Scottish Secretary of Finance. So can I ask the Minister, can he succeed in persuading the Chancellor to have this meeting, please?
Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, in my role as Chief Secretary of the Treasury, I've met members of the Scottish Government to discuss the fiscal situation. We have a fiscal forum, which is every quarter, with the representatives from the Scottish Government as well as Wales and Northern Ireland, and those are the right ways in which we can have a routine discussion about matters of shared interest.
Cross.
Speaker, the government have clearly lost control of this complete budget process. While they've been flying kites, businesses across the UK have been sending up distress flares. £40 billion of tax on them in the last budget saw hiring down, confidence down, investments down, and we are now seeing the same again. If any business in this country went to find backing and had as many U-turns as this government is producing, they would not have a chance of finding an investor. So how can any business across the country have confidence in this government?
Mr Speaker, businesses can have confidence in this government because when we say we're going to stick to our fiscal rules, we mean it. When we say we're going to have more headroom to make our economy and our public finances more resilient, we mean it. And when we say we're going to get national debt down, we mean it, unlike the party opposite when they were in government.
Matt Wilkinson. Matt Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I host a regular business forum with Cheltenham constituents, and what they tell me is that the late date of this budget has undermined their ability to make decisions. The speculation around it has undermined their ability to make decisions on investment. But also they note there's been nearly no speculation about any pro-business measures for someone who's trying to start a business or someone who's trying to grow a business. So might the Chief Secretary of the Treasury take this opportunity to speculate on something that might be useful for the SMEs and larger businesses in my constituency?
Minister. Well, Mr Speaker, whilst the honourable gentleman wouldn't expect me to speculate on details, I can reassure him that our budget will support growth by enabling businesses to create jobs, to innovate, to invest and to grow.
Luke Evans.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This urgent question is about budget press briefings. And the Minister has repeatedly said that he takes his responsibilities very seriously. He was asked by the Shadow Chancellor, can he rule out that any of the ministerial team or special advisers had leaked any of the information out to the press? Will he do that from this dispatch box in honour of what he's been saying in answer in his questions this afternoon?
Mr Speaker, I didn't just say that I take my responsibility to this House very seriously. I said that every minister in this government takes their responsibility to this House very seriously. But I'm not going to engage in further speculation ahead of budget.
Peter Bedford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In the last year, a record £70 billion has been withdrawn from pension schemes through the tax-free lump sum as a result of the fear driven from the uncertainty over the last number of months. Does the Minister